Good morning, everyone. Let's just wait a few more moments here and make sure we've got everyone here. Well, it looks like most folks are here. Kristen, if you want to get started, I think we're good.
Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great day with the weather change. It's always quite nice. Okay, I'd like to call the Health-Related Institutions Formula Advisory Committee meeting to order. Thank you all for being here this morning. I am Kristen Nace from the Texas A&M Health Science Center, and I am the committee chair. Please be advised that this meeting is being broadcast over the internet and recorded, so I would like to ask all attendees to please silence your cell phones. Also, since this meeting is via Zoom, please mute your connection until you're ready to speak to prevent background noise. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's begin with the roll call. Mrs. Berger?
All right. Let's see. Do we have Mr. Alford? Okay. I'll mark him as absent and we'll come back. Ms. Gomez-Leon.
Present.
Mr. Guajardo.
Present.
Ms. Harkey.
Here.
Dr. Lang. We'll come back. Mr. Lewis.
Present.
Ms. Maureen Hill.
Present.
Dr. McCullers.
Present.
Mr. Miller. I see Mr. Wilson is here. Are you attending on his behalf?
No, I couldn't get my mute unmuted. I'm here.
Okay. That is Mr. I'm sorry, was that Mr. Wilson?
No, this is Michael.
Oh, I
No.
see you. Okay, thank you. Got it. Ms. Nace.
Here.
Ms. Shear.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Tremonte.
Present.
Ms. Withers. Okay, let me come back. Is Mr. Alford present?
Present.
Oh, gotcha. And Dr. Lang. Is anyone here on his behalf? And coming back to Ms. Withers. Is anyone here on her behalf? All right, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. So item 4 on the agenda is approval of the minutes. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Kemp at this time.
Good morning. Is there any discussion of the minutes of the October 1st meeting? If not, is there a motion to approve the October 1st meeting minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
Mr. Pahar. The first motion was by Mr. Tremonte. The second was provided, I believe, by Mr. Guajardo. Will all in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion passes. Our next order of business is to discuss the charges, so I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. To begin the discussion of commissioners' charges, I'd like to ask each of the subcommittee leads to provide an update for us. If we could begin with Charge 1 Working Group, which was led by Ms. Marin Hill. Just a friendly reminder, this group was formed to study and make recommendations for the appropriate funding levels for the I&O, infrastructure, research enhancement, graduate medical education, and mission-specific formulas. As part of the GME review, this work group will review whether the GME formula should consider a difference between outpatient and inpatient. Ms. Marin Hill?
Yes, thank you, Kristen, and good morning, everyone. Happy to provide an update on Work Group 1's work to date. So far, the work group has met once and continued to review the data and discuss our proposal, which I will share with you today as more data became available. Melita will also present the data and recommended funding amounts that come from that data later this morning. So as I think you'll all recall, at our first meeting, there was interest in having the Legislative Budget Board, LBB, present on their process. And so at our first meeting, LBB did present, and I know many of you were really interested in hearing about that information. So I'll provide a quick summary today. So the team lead and our LBB analyst, Lan and Brad, walked through their process from when they received the data, the formula enrollment and other formula driver data from the coordinating board to develop the formula runs that both fall and spring formula runs that LBB prepares that feed into the base state budget bills. Those bills, as you all know, are considered respectively by the House and Senate chambers through their processes and all the way through conference committee. I don't think others can perhaps correct me if I'm mischaracterizing, but I don't think there were any surprises necessarily in what LBB shared about their process. But I'll borrow from Tomas's comments during our meeting to summarize the two main takeaways from that LBB presentation, which were one, it's incredibly important for all institutions to get our enrollment and other formula drivers into the coordinating board on time, and also incredibly important to make sure that that data is accurate. I'll add a third takeaway that it's also really critical to still check the fall and spring formula runs for each of our institutions because things do happen, I think, as we've probably all experienced. So with that said, I will move on to a summary of the work group's recommendation for increases to the formula for the full committee's consideration and discussion. So following is what the work group has landed on so far. I'll just preface by saying that our starting premise really was that we wanted to make a recommendation that helps all institutions and, as we like to say, lifts all boats. So recognizing that different formulas perform differently, however, for different HRIs, we thought that a recommendation proposing a standardized increase to all the formulas, with just one exception that I'll talk about in a couple of minutes, would indeed serve to lift all boats. So our overarching recommendation today for consideration is for the formulas is to fund growth. This, of course, includes all the clinical and research mission-specific formulas. And in addition, to provide an inflationary increase to the big four formulas, if you will, I&O, infrastructure, research enhancement, and GME. The recommended inflationary increase is the average medical CPI since 2019, which is calculates to a little bit less than 3%. However, with this said, knowing that a 3% increase across the formulas could create some sticker shock for the legislature, we're also proposing that this increase be implemented over the next 3 biennia. Again, Melita will go over the formula growth and recommended funding in a minute. But before she does, I wanted to come back to the one exception to the standardized recommendation that I mentioned, and that exception is to the GME formula. I think many of you will recall, as mentioned in the last full Formula Advisory Committee meeting, and many of us have discussed since then, GME costs really continue to outstrip average medical inflation, and even, I think, at most of our institutions, inpatient program costs. And this is especially true as I think, again, at most of our institutions, our residents are spending more and more time in the outpatient setting. We've also, as part of, as we considered this, really wanted to address outstanding needs across the state. It's really important, as we all know, for our residents training, for them to spend time in the outpatient setting. But it's also, we're all mission driven, very important for all of us to try to meet stated needs in Texas that Commissioner Rosser actually pointed out in his comments in our first meeting. The two needs that that the commissioner especially emphasized were maintaining and growing our healthcare workforce, and second, really meeting patients where they are, especially in rural areas of our state. So as the work group considered GME, we thought there are many reasons to keep and try to grow residents trained in the outpatient setting, but also discussed how the HRI costs in the outpatient setting are significant, especially since teaching in this setting can be even more inefficient than the inpatient setting. And there's even less cost recovery or reimbursement opportunity for outpatient teaching. So this all led to the request that went out to all the institutions, to all of you, to report how much time your residents are spending in the outpatient setting. And there was a big range. Again, Melita will cover that in a minute. Our range was really from 20% to 75% at the health institutions across the state in terms of how much time our residents are spending in that outpatient setting. If we average all of the HRIs across the state, our total 9,100 residents are spending about 32%, almost a third of their total time in the outpatient setting. So to help cover this added, largely unfunded cost, the work group is proposing that we recommend an additional increase to the GME formula rate above the standardized inflation recommendation. We would like to propose a 20% increase, which would take the rate from almost $6,000 per resident per year to just under or about $7,700. So the increase, the proposal would propose the increase would be implemented in the first biennium of the proposed 3 biennium plan, really given how significantly the unfunded cost is and the need that the HRIs are experiencing even today. So I'll stop here and we'll turn it over to Melita now to walk us through the data. Of course, I should have said happy to answer any questions now, or Melita and or I can certainly address those questions as she also walks through the data.
All right, I'll pick up from here. Feel free to jump in if you have a question. All right, so let me share my screen. Excuse me. Okay. So I'm going to just sort of walk through this from left to right because it is kind of a lot in there. Starting on the left, here's the various formulas. The second column is what's in the GAA currently. This third column with the lighter blue would be the full targeted inflation amount. And as a reminder, when our work group met, these were the rates that we landed on using the inflation adjusted approach that Angelica just discussed. So those yellow numbers are what you're going to see in the fully inflated rates column over here. And that is what is used to build the full targeted inflation amount here in column C. The difference, as you can see, would be 592 million. if the full inflation was to be proposed, but that is, of course, not what the proposal is. And I would also note that the mission-specific numbers are still pending and the dental clinical education is still pending. That item is becoming a formula-funded item for 28-29. So we're still collecting data there. Moving to this middle section, this shows you the three scenarios and the funding that would result. So the orange would be the recommendation for 28-29. And you can see that that increase over the 26-27 right now is calculated at 281 million. Again, still needing some data there. The second set of green columns would be the request for 2030-31. And this shows the increase over the proposal for 28-29. So that would be 141 million. And similarly for the third biennium we're discussing for 32-33 with 170 million over the prior biennium of 30-31. That 3 biennium increase again works out to the 592 that's over here on the left. And then moving over to the rates, this is where the detail is as to how the various rates were calculated. So it starts with the base, looks at the total inflated level, and then the difference. And then a third of the difference is what is added to the base rate to get to the rates for 28-29, 30-31, and 32-33. Again, getting back to that full targeted inflation in 32-33. Noting that this GME number for 28-29 has an additional 20% added onto it, as Angelica just discussed. So that is what is built into our numbers. And then this last block is the metrics. So this is the current numbers that we have based on the reporting that y'all provided for FTSE. There's a projection for predicted square feet, research expenditures, and GME residents. That data is down here on the FTSE tab. As you can see, we've built in the figures that you've given us and calculated it at the various 3 rates scenarios here, including the small class supplement estimate from 26-27 on top to make sure that doesn't get left out. This 28-29 rate assumption right now would result in a 12.7% increase for INO, and that piece is relevant to the mission-specific, clinical mission-specific figures. So coming back to this tab, I think I have covered pretty much everything here. I'll stop if there's any comments or questions.
Melita, I have one question. And maybe you've covered it and I've just not seen a percentage. The growth only, what are we seeing that as on INO, for example, biennium over biennium?
Right. So for 28-29, using the rate that we're proposing, it would be a 12.7% growth right now for INO.
Well, I guess I'm even stepping back and saying, if the rate didn't change, what?
Oh, the enrollment growth only?
Right.
I don't have that right here, but I'm
Okay.
happy to build that in.
Okay. I was just curious if, in comparison to prior bienniums, whether things are slowing down overall growth-wise, or it's growing,
Well,
or it's on pace.
Yes, and actually, now that I'm looking at the chart we do have the growth that y'all have reported of 4.7% right here. If that's what so the weighted FTSE that was reported by y'all for 28-29 was 77,658. Let me make this bigger. And the 26-27 GAA was at 74,000. So that's a 4.7% enrollment.
Okay. And I guess I was curious how that compares to the rest, because I think that's somewhat, our growth has worked against us from the inflation side previously. And so I'm just curious if all things remained equal and we saw a fairly constant rate of growth overall, whether, or I'm sorry, constant rate of increase in the overall, in the dollars, then perhaps a lower growth percentage would free up some money for inflation potentially in the future.
So if I'm understanding it, you're saying if enrollment growth starts to level off, there would be more funding available to address the higher costs.
Right. If the idea is we're going to continue to put an equal amount of funding, or from a growth perspective, yes, that's my curiosity, I guess, there is.
Well, and that's a good question, because the current scenario here does not build in enrollment growth for the future biennia for 30-31 and 32-33 at this point.
And Melita, let me jump in maybe. So I know the recommendation, we're looking at the yellow columns, right? So I know, kind of going back to Mike's point, so the 187 is about a 12.7% increase, or 13% increase over the levels of this year. And if I was understanding the math, that's comprised of both growth and rate. So rough math, and maybe my math is wrong, so 4.7 is the growth rate, and then the remaining, which would be closer to 8, is the actual recommended rate increase for that. And I think that the report would put a lot of emphasis on the rate hasn't been adjusted. We've been very blessed to have received money for growth, but I think the report, as I understand, will try to focus on, trying to ask for both the growth, but at the same time supporting for the rate, because that lifts all boats, and provides money for all institutions, as we all have impacted by inflation in the last couple of years.
Tomas, I think that's, if I can jump in, that's a very good summary. And I think the report would also point out that at a slightly less than 3%, inflationary increase, we feel that that's a reasonable request, as we've all even personally seen, I think, much higher inflationary increases in budgets year over year since 2019. So again, to echo Tomas's comments, we are grateful and appreciative of the enrollment growth, but with inflationary cost increases, have not been able to keep up with the reality of the full cost that we're all covering. Mike, I think good question, and it points out that we did not assume enrollment increases for the second and third biennium of the recommendation. If the committee would like, can certainly make some assumptions and provide some projections if there's interest in that. But again, there is such a range in how institutions are growing. It would be difficult to make those assumptions.
Angelica, I just want to thank you and Melita for your work on this proposal. I think in terms of the inflationary increase and staging that over 3 biennium, I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of what we're going forward and asking the legislature to invest in. And then in terms of the GME and the supplement for the outpatient, and talking with our GME director, I know he was very supportive. I think it makes a lot of sense given, as you noted, the increased cost and sometimes inefficiencies that come along with the outpatient setting versus the inpatient setting. And I think it also aligns, as you noted, with the state goals and the commissioner's goals as well. So appreciate your work on this.
Thanks very much, Lauren, for those comments, and appreciate all of the homework you've done with your team as well to feed into the GME and the other formula recommendations. Unfortunately, unless I've missed them, Melita, I don't think Amanda and Dr. Lang have made it on. So perhaps we can get their thoughts.
Amanda is here. Yes, she joined just a couple minutes late.
Ah,
Yeah, no, I'm here. So I've been listening. I'm in agreement.
oh, great. Thank you, Amanda. So Chris, maybe I'll turn to Kristen. How would you like to proceed?
Well, I think the work that's been done is terrific. I think consideration of going for a 3 biennium request is fantastic. I did want to clarify in regards to that request. It's simply a request, right? So hopefully we would be able to receive and they would approve that first biennium request. And then going into it for the second and the third biennium, still in anticipation that these amounts would get updated, correct? It's not a single package request for 3 biennium.
That's correct. It's a living proposal, if you will.
Yes, that sounds great.
And in fact, Kristen, if I may, I think that there might be one institution's data that is still coming. So these numbers could be adjusted slightly, including the GME rate. I actually just noticed something that we can come back to.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, well,
And I have
yeah.
a quick question. Angelica, would the supplement for the GME formula, would that continue in the report for the 3 biennium plan, or is it just for the upcoming biennium?
That's a great question, Lauren, and that's actually the change that just noticed in the numbers here. The intent would be for it to continue, so the rate would not decrease in the second and third biennium. It would in fact increase, slightly by the proportionate inflationary increase.
Thank you.
So we'll update that.
Angelica, I do have one quick question. I understand at the beginning you had invited the LBB to talk through their process. I'm just curious if the information that they presented, did that help steer the development of this recommendation? And then did they hear or react to this proposed recommendation, and what was their reaction to it?
Great question, Jenny. I think maybe I'll defer to the other work group members who are on today to also address your first question. I think their presentation informed more the process than the development of the work group's proposal for the full committee's consideration. But if anyone else would like to chime in on that part of the question. In case I mischaracterized anything.
No, I agree, Angelica. It was more about the process with the legislature and the timeline of presenting this information to them.
Thank you, Lauren. And then Jenny, your second question, we did not actually present this back to LBB for review. Really, first stop was to propose it to the full committee and get input from the full committee.
I would like to add that the LBB presentation was informative to me from a standpoint of how they view the recommendations. And they were able to share that once they get the data, they start running the formulas. And I kind of keyed in on a comment that was made that they start looking at the total dollar amount. So historically, I think for me, I've looked at it more like a percentage increase change, but they didn't talk in those terms. They talked strictly about dollar amounts and totals. So I think that was something to keep in mind as we move forward.
Agree, and I'll add, I think the committee's done a very good job. And the other comment they made is they do read our report. So, this is our opportunity for us to make the case and explain the challenges for sure we had on funding. We're grateful for the increased funding for growth, but explaining a little bit more about the necessities on potential consideration for rate increases. So, the more I think we provide them with data, the more they're willing to be able to answer any questions that may come up during the process by legislators.
I want to go back just a little bit to what Mike Tremonte mentioned. Because exactly following on what you said, do you think it's beneficial if they can see a different number? We have not historically done that. What is the number for growth at current rates? And what are we asking for inflation? To me, those are great metrics. I look at those myself internally because I think that's a lens the legislature would look through.
So Penny, if I'm understanding correctly, you're talking about the presentation of the recommendation to split it into the enrollment growth piece and then show the inflation growth increase.
I would totally agree, Penny. I think it's very important for us
To carve those out separately and explain the rationale for both, yes.
I agree.
Okay. All right. At the risk of committing Melita, we're happy to work on that.
Yes, we can do that.
So, Kristen, perhaps we can work on that, on revising the presentation on the update to the GME piece and circulate the that data to the full committee sometime in the next. Melita, I'll defer to you in the next week or two, perhaps.
Yes, I think probably within a week.
Okay. Great. And so then, Kristen, we could all be prepared to discuss as a committee of the whole at the next meeting, and when you're ready to consider votes.
That sounds fantastic. Thank you so much for a wonderful update, encouraging that so much progress has been made. And I appreciate all the time and effort this committee has spent, especially Melita. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation and very thorough analysis of a recommendation.
You're welcome.
Moving on now to charge 2A with Ms. Gomez-Leon. You may remember this group was formed to study and make recommendations for the appropriate INO formula weights, including consideration of any specialty programs for inclusion, such as graduate allied health and graduate nursing. Jenny, would you like to take over?
Sure. Thanks, Kristen. So we have not done much work yet. We have actually technically not met yet, but I have spent some of the last few weeks gathering and obtaining some information from Melita. So Melita, thank you again for providing me some of that information. We are a very small group, and so we have there's a 4-member group from San Antonio, Tyler, Dell, and UNT. And as I got the information from Melita, it became glaringly apparent that only 2 of us on the committee actually have programs in the allied health and nursing programs. So what I had not had a chance to do, and what I would like to take the opportunity to do right now, is ask for some volunteers from potentially some of the institutions that provided data in this study last year, namely Houston, Texas Tech Health Science Center, and UTMB. If I could include you in my data request. I don't think that the study based on San Antonio and UNT is going to be reliable enough to really do a cost-effective study with just 2 institutions on really what the cost differential is between undergrad and graduate programs. So what I'd like to do is, after today's meeting, once I get a positive reaction to participating into this study analysis, go ahead and incorporate an onboarding meeting to kind of really talk through what it is that we're trying to do, how we approached this last year, a couple of options that we have to approach this, and then just being able to have the time to work with our campuses to get the information and calculate the data and then come back with the recommendation. I think as we looked at this last year, we had enough data to demonstrate about a 20% and a 30% increase to the weights for the allied health and nursing programs, respectively. And so it's surely the cost with everything, with all the rising costs. I have a gut feel that says the numbers are a little higher, but I need more data to be able to present that. So Mike, Penny, and Lauren, if you guys are willing, I'll include you in our meeting, and I hope that doesn't violate any kind of quorum. And so Melita, I just need your help to help me know, is it okay for me to reach out via email? Does that constitute a meeting, or how can I approach that?
I believe as long as there's not 7 folks in the meeting,
Okay.
I think it's fine. I was also going to ask you, would you like me to share the data sheet on my screen?
Sure.
Already have? Okay, one moment.
Yes.
I'm just
And this will help shed light as to why I kind of stopped in my tracks is not wanting to put a whole lot of emphasis just on me and you, Kemp, in terms of calculating all the data. But if you look on the screen that Melita is showing you, these are all of the health-related institutions. Some don't have both programs, but many do. And so last year we had San Antonio, line 4, participate, line 7, Texas Tech Health Science Center, line 8, Houston, and line 10, UTMB, all participated in the cost study. And so right now we would only have lines 4 and line 6 to base the cost study on. And I do think that we just need a little bit more semester credit hour costing information to really be able to give a good recommendation to the report.
Jenny, we can certainly get you Houston's information.
Thank you.
Same here for Texas Tech.
And same for
Thank
UTMB.
Wonderful. Thank you. So what I'll do is I'll follow up with a meeting, particularly to the work group, since many of those work group members are new to what this charge was asking for in the prior year, bring them up to speed, and then that'll keep us under the 7-member meeting threshold, Melita, and then we'll kind of work through Penny, Mike, and Lauren with just email follow-ups on what we're looking at based on what the committee, which options the work group proposes. Thank you very much. And Kristen, that's really the base of my report, except to say that I do look forward to meeting with Courtney, John, and Kemp in the coming days. So thank you. And we will work as diligently as we can to continue to make the December timeline. Thank you.
That sounds fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to charge 2B. This work group is led by Mr. Mike Tremonte, and a reminder, this group was focused to study and make recommendations for the appropriate INO formula weights, including consideration of any new specialty programs for inclusion, such as graduate behavioral health and optometry. Mr. Tremonte.
Thank you, Ms. Nace. It's we did have an opportunity to get together, and Dr. McCullers had shared some initial information regarding optometry and their program. I had also provided some costing data initially from behavioral science. I think frankly, we both left with homework. After the committee, we are meeting again next week. I think a good point was made on behavioral sciences from a costing standpoint. It's been quite some time since the formulas were developed. And so needless to say, the current weights aren't built on current costs. And so the recommendation was really to look at, somewhat similar to the way that I think last time graduate nursing, graduate allied health looked at this was amount of incremental growth in the cost as opposed to the total cost. And so the idea here is for us to do some more work on the behavioral health side to compare against potentially the graduate nursing rates, the allied health rates, and look at that from a costing standpoint to see, okay, how's that, is that amount 5% more, 5% less, and then try to to appropriately size the weight for the program. From the optometry standpoint, we did have some question and frankly some inexperience with the academic formula. So we had more questions than answers there as well. We don't, last biennium, there was a proposal for a supplement for the academic institutions with health-related programs. Don't know whether that's something that's being resubmitted for this coming biennium or not. And then there was also some questions around, because optometry at U of H is unique. Currently, it's the only program in the state. Very similar to vet sciences at A&M for quite some time. There was some question as to whether perhaps that is a possibility for consideration as well, is within the academic formula to segregate that, much like vet medicine. So again, I think we were going to, Dr. McCullers was going to touch base with his his GAI counterpart and get some additional information, and that way we could revisit all this, when we met next. And Dr. McCullers, Penny, if y'all have any other comments.
Yeah, I'll just say, I think you summed it up well, Michael. I have made my GAI compatriots aware of the question and have yet to get information back from them, but we'll have that by our meeting next week.
Okay. Michael, I didn't mean to leave you out either. I know that RGV's in the unique situation of actually getting to the point where they'll be initiating an optometry program.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, we're starting that program up in the fall of 27. So we are in a unique situation, as you mentioned, but as you highlighted perfectly, I think we're in a kind of a fact-finding kind of flight right now, and determining where that weight or formula in which optometry should be funded in. Still kind of looking down that path. So I've reached out to Susan, my counterpart on the GAI side as well. So more to come.
Any questions for the group? Back to you, Ms. Nace.
Thank you very much. So glad to hear that progress is being made. It's very encouraging. Look forward to the December meeting to hear how that subcommittee pulls it all together. So, okay then. If there are no further comments or questions or discussion in regard to agenda item 5, then we'll move forward to agenda item 6. Agenda item 6 is the discussion of dates and assignments for subsequent meetings. The next meeting is planned for 10 a.m. on Wednesday, December 3rd. Of course, we can add additional dates as needed, but it seems like December 3rd might still be a good time. It sounded like work group number 1 is at a good place and wrapping up, and then that would afford work group 2A and 2B a little additional time to get together and make their determinations and recommendations for us. So if that's still good with everyone, we'll look at Wednesday, December 3rd. I don't know how you all feel about today's meeting being completely virtual as opposed to an in-person meeting, is there any comment or suggestions in regards to the December meeting? Does anybody have a preference? No preference?
My preference would be virtual.
Thank you. Okay,
Same.
same. All right, we will move forward with a virtual meeting then for the December 3rd. I'm still holding on to whether or not we'll need another meeting in January. We may or may not. I've started to look at the calendar. If we held with our consistent timing, then perhaps Wednesday, January the 7th would be a good time for this. I'd ask you to just go ahead and perhaps put a hold on your calendar just in case it comes up that we do in fact need this time. But if we do, I'll certainly be reaching out to the coordinating board and Melita to determine if that time and day would work for them as well. So more to come on whether we'll have a January meeting. Is there any further discussion regarding meeting dates and times? Okay, does anyone wish to request any additional materials from the coordinating board at this time?
I guess, Kristen, if we could, Jenny, if you wouldn't mind sharing some of your data once you've compiled everything from the graduate nursing and graduate allied health, that would help in our behavioral science recommendation.
Right. Yes, Mike, will do.
Okay, if there are no further questions or points of discussion, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is the adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Happy to
Second.
second.
Thank you. Well, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The Formula Advisory Committee is adjourned until December the 3rd at 10 a.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.